ever since the RAW photo standard was invented, and since RAW editors were created to process those files, photographers have dreamed of being able to make better localized adjustments. When those first editors came out, we were limited by the capabilities of the software, and global adjustments were often all that was possible. Back in those before times, masking something like the sky was a shit show, particularly if the transition between the sky and the land was anything other than some razor-sharp mountain range like the ones developers use in their how-to videos to showcase their AI masking tools. I remember making blue channel-based selections as a starting point for sky masks back in the day, and then using the old magic wand or the lasso tools to painstakingly select sky regions. And no matter what I did with things like feathered edge selections, the masks inevitably looked shit. Over the years, masks evolved to include gradients, luminosity, and hue options, but AI masking was the game changer many photographers have been dreaming of, ushering in an era of one-click sky and subject selections. But in our never-ending quest for easy mode, has the convenience of AI masking blinded us to the fact that, at least in some cases, they're not the best option? Do AI masks actually transform natural-looking imagery into fake-looking CGI composites? Let's unmask, see what I did there, the truth about AI editing. If there's one subject upon which all digital photography hobbyists seem to have a strong opinion these days, then it's masks and their use in post-processing. I recently released my review of DxO Photolab 8 on this channel, and without a shadow of a doubt, the most common complaint about the software, voiced loudly and frequently in the comments section, was the fact that it has no AI masking. The argument, and I do find it hard to disagree, is that everyone else has AI masking these days. Adobe, All-One, Capture One, Luminar, even a humble Mac-only $30 app like Photomator has bloody AI masking. So why doesn't Photolab and Affinity Photo? I've got no answers for you on that front. I'm not privy to the decision-making process that DxO, the developers of Photolab, went through before deciding to stick rigidly to non-AI masks and their pseudo-smart viewpoint technology. But the fact that they did decide to ignore AI masks for another year got me thinking. Photolab, after all, is a top-tier product in pretty much every way. It's easily as capable as something like Capture One or Lightroom, more capable in many ways. They haven't spoken publicly about why they're ignoring AI masks, but hear me out. What if their argument was that luminosity, hue, and gradient masks are simply more photographic and less computational? Or what if their argument was that actually AI masks are more artificial than intelligent and they don't work as well as advertised? And if that is their stance, that more traditional masking tools create more natural-looking images than AI masks and are about as effective, then we could put that theory to the test. I love my AI masks, but I'm willing to play devil's advocate here and make the case for old-school masks. Side note, I'm a landscape photographer, and that's the focus of this video. The case for AI masks is a lot stronger for stuff like portrait or products photography, so do bear that in mind. All right, let's get into this. One of the big myths about AI masks is that they are a one-click solution. Any mask generated by AI is 100% reliable. This is, of course, a long way wide of the mark, and if you are blindly accepting something like Lightroom's AI Sky Mask, then you're definitely masking superfluous regions elsewhere in the photo. Allow me to demonstrate. I've gone ahead and generated 2 masks on this beach sunrise photograph. The first mask on the right here, you can see is an AI sky mask. You see it says Sky 1, which was generated automatically for me with one click by Adobe Lightroom Classic. Above it, I have generated a luminance range mask. I click Create New Mask and I selected this region at the top, and then I finessed the luminance range with the slider to try and get as tidy a selection as possible. Both of these masks need finessing, but one of them needs far less work than the other, and the one that needs far less work is the luminance mask. Here's our AI mask, and I'll show you what is selected by cranking the exposure all the way to the right. Now, as you can see, it's mainly selected these regions of sky, the larger areas. But look at this portion on the right here in the bushes. That's completely unaffected by the mask. Ditto these little bits in between the bushes and that. Let's now have a look at the luminance range mask. Click on this one and we'll do the same thing. We'll crank the exposure up and look. It's selected all of the sky. All these little fiddly bits in between the branches have been selected. It has done a far superior job to the AI mask. Now, I can of course finesse both of these masks. If I click on this one, and then we can just remove the bits at the bottom of the screen that we don't want, and ditto on the range mask, just get the linear gradient and subtract up to the horizon line. And now for the luminance range, we have an absolutely perfect sky mask. Absolutely every portion of the sky has been selected. Down here, not so much. The reality distortion field around AI masks is strong, but as you can see, they're not the best option in certain circumstances. I'd also like to point out that it took exactly the same amount of time to generate the luminance mask as it did the sky mask. So just to clarify, there was no time-saving benefit to going AI, and I ended up with an inferior mask. One of the biggest problems with AI masks, particularly as it pertains to landscape photography, is that landscapes are not comprised of perfectly discrete objects and perfectly defined edges. The complex interplay of light, color, haze, perspective, and distance mean that there are hardly ever any neat boundaries. In landscape photography, it's rare that you want a single pixel width defining the edges of a region of a photograph. But the machine learning tools implemented by companies like Adobe don't understand the complexities of tonal relationships and color theory, and so quite often a single pixel width edge is what you get. Even on those mountain ranges with the razor-sharp edges that the software companies use to showcase their AI sky masking tools, you probably don't want a perfect edge. Because if you do, any edits will make it look like it's a composite. Skies, for instance, are not a single homogeneous block of light values and colors, so why treat it as such? The use of AI sky masks can result in some very unnatural looking post-processing, and I will demonstrate that to you with this image, which I took down at my local river. Let's say that I wanted to darken that sky to bring out the detail a bit more. The obvious thing to do would be surely just to click on this sky button, make myself a little mask, and then drop the exposure down. Fine. The problem is it now doesn't look natural. We have this hard edge, far too strong a transition between this hazy region of the escarpment and the sky. It doesn't look natural. It looks composited. It looks like I've done a sky replacement. The alternative is actually just to use a simple linear gradient. So I'm going to create a new mask, click on linear gradient, and then I drag down so I have a transition area in the middle here. I'm just going to move that up slightly. Just that round a little bit that way. And what I'm going to do now is do the same thing. I'm going to drop the exposure. And so we've got the same outcome there. The sky is now darker, but look how much more natural that is, because we have this natural fall off of light. It'll show you that to you once again. Turn off that mask. Here's our AI mask. Drop down the exposure. We get a hard edge. Disable that one. Turn our linear gradient mask on. Drop the exposure and we get a beautiful, nice, gradual fall off in light intensity. Atmospheric scattering, proximity to the light source, i.e. the sun, the time of day, the weather, the cloud cover, and the camera angle and lens all contribute to a naturally occurring gradient. In many instances, a basic linear gradient mask will create a more natural looking and therefore more believable result than something like an AI sky mask. After all, a graduated ND filter has been the in-camera way of dealing with dynamic range for over a century. So the value add, the big sell, the USP of the AI mask is that it saves you time. And to that, I say, bollocks. There's not been a single occasion since I created my very first AI mask, all the way back in Photoshop CC 2018, that I haven't had to tweak it afterwards. Lightroom Sky Mask never gets it right first go, and if I have to intersect an AI Sky Mask with a luminosity or hue mask, for instance, then why not just use a luminosity or hue mask in the first place? Yes, my friends, if I have to dick around finessing an AI mask, why not cut out the middleman and do it myself? So let's use the magical Lightroom Sky Mask here. And, it's selected a body of water and completely failed to select this region of sky behind this bush. Which is fair enough, you know. It's a complicated bloody scene and I don't expect miracles, but people talk up AI, don't they? So, what would I do to finesse this normally, this AI mask? Well, for instance, I would add some luminance range to it. So if we get in here and select that, and then drag this slider out and keep an eye on this area in the bushes over here, waiting for it all to go pink. Once I've got a good selection there, I can let go and, oh dear. Now I've selected all this stuff at the bottom of the picture, which I don't want to select. So now I've got to remove all that. Fortunately, I've got a fairly clean horizon line here, so I can do a linear gradient. That's most of it gone, but oh no. If I look now, there's this area on the horizon here that's been selected. So I guess I'd subtract some colors from that. Let's try this, and we can finesse that so we're getting a better edge on that, and we're kind of there now. We've got our original perfect sky mask, which we had to tweak with a luminance range mask, and then chop the bottom edge off with a linear gradient, and then finally finesse with a color range. And now we've got something that we can use, which we can tweak the exposure if we wanted to, and you can see it's changing over in the bushes there as well. Why not just start with a luminance range mask? So I'll get a nice broad selection here, and we've immediately picked up all the stuff in the bushes. No finessing required. I might bring that in slightly here, make sure we're not losing too much. Yep, that was looking good. And now we can remove that bottom section with a linear gradient. And do we have to tweak this? Yes, we've also got to tweak that bit on the horizon. So subtract color range, remove that little bit, and refine the edge. And there we go. We've got a nice mask now, but it's one less step. That's right. AI masks are not always accurate and should be checked prior to making any local adjustments. Adobe released the first AI masking tool with subject selection in Photoshop back in 2017. And that's more or less where we find ourselves today. AI is great at masking obvious stuff like skies or bold main subjects that stand out clearly from the background, but they're mostly shit at all the other stuff. Adobe attempted to address this issue by adding the object mask to its suite of AI masks in Lightroom, but it's not actually that different to the old auto mask tool that's been in there for 16 years. For everything else in your photo, your best option is to use either a hue or luminosity mask or something like a radial mask and then finesse it with the brush if need be. I've been using AI masks since they came out, and I found that if you don't double check the results, they can oversimplify complex scenes. You see, often AI lumps together areas that a human editor would treat separately, miss out on the subtleties of light and shadow that define the scene's mood. It's an almost intangible concept that would be hard to train into an AI model because it's almost counterintuitive. AI might create hard edges where there should be soft transitions or miss partially obscured elements that contribute to the image's depth. So here's a good example of how Lightroom and AI masking in pretty much all apps does tend to oversimplify a scene. Got the sky region here and there's some clouds. So let's make a sky mask. And as you can see, it has failed to pick up on this region here just above the escarpment. It's oversimplified the scene. It's created a kind of a neat little box. It's got a little bit of the clouds. You can see totally there. If we switch to white on black, you can see it's picked up a little bit of the clouds on the edges there, but it certainly hasn't got the whole thing. So in this case, it would be much more sensible to manually mask this rather than finessing it. With this image, we've got this kind of green tinge to the sky, which I would probably correct with a small color temperature tweak on a mask. I would actually prefer to include this kind of fringe area on the land because it's kind of being affected too. And when we can't compartmentalize something with an AI mask, miss out on that kind of sophistication. This oversimplification can lead to flat, artificial looking edits that lack the depth and nuance of the original scene. The purpose of this video wasn't to justify DxO Photo Labs feature set, and the arguments I've made apply equally to Lightroom. Often an AI sky mask is not the best option, even when it's available. But before I finish up, I'd like to demonstrate the fact that Photolab's masking tools should not be dismissed out of hand, since they can produce excellent results quickly and easily. Got Photolab version 8 running here, and I put in 2 masks. I'm not even using the new mask, the hue and the luminosity. I'm just using the control line, which has been in there for ages, and the auto mask. So the control line is effectively like the linear gradient you apply in the same way, dragging down the image. The important thing to remember with it is to kind of bridge the area, the region, the boundaries of what you want it to mask off, and to move this eyedropper to the area that you want to mask, because by default it starts off between these 2 lines here. So you just pick it up and move it to where you want it to go. Then you finesse the mask using the Chroma and Luma tools here. That's color and light to you and me, Chief. And I've done that, I finessed it. And if I hover over this now, you can see we've got a really nice sky selection there with a nice sort of edge on the escarpment. And if I wanted to do something like crank up the saturation then on the sky, I can come down and improve that. And as you can see, we haven't got any haloing going on. We've got a nice edge, beautiful gradual line, and a nice looking effect. The other mask that I've used here is the auto mask. I'll click on that. At first glance, this doesn't look great. If I hover over here, in fact, let's put it in black and white so you can see what's going on, and click on it. It looks terrible, doesn't it? Like I've just drawn splodgy white blobs all over the place. But it's a little bit confusing, this one, and I wish it displayed differently, but this is not representative of what you're actually affecting. It is doing edge boundary detection behind this selection. So let's put it back in color overlay, and I will show you precisely what I mean. Watch when I click on this, and I will lower the exposure down. Can you see it's actually done a stunning selection of those bushes. I tested this in Lightroom. It did a better job than the Object Mask tool in Lightroom. Absolutely perfect for something like that, where you want to, say, crank up the micro contrast in those bushes just to make them stand out a bit more. And you end up with a great natural looking result. There are, of course, many arguments in favor of AI masks too. I'm thinking in particular of portrait photography, where precise selections of things like hair are a massive time saver and a benefit to portrait photographers. But as I think I've shown you, it's not as clear cut as AI good, old school bad. Do you like AI masks? Have you given up on the old mask types completely? What's your go-to photo editor and how are its masking capabilities? Let me know in the comments section down below. If you've got value from this content, please hit the old like button and consider subscribing for more photo, video and drone related content from me. Till the next time, guys.